If you haven't seen the previous video in this series, follow the link on your screen or click the link in the description or pinned comment below.
"52 seconds of logos."
I've never really liked the logo, Sin. It just screams, I don't know how to open a video, so let's talk about an industry standard practice that literally no moviegoer actually cares about. But the Atomic Monster Studio logo is pretty freaking sweet. I mean, they at least tried to make it interesting for the viewer, and when I first saw it, it tricked me into thinking it was a part of a movie I was watching. So the sin here is for complaining about effort.
The lyric here is, "I had a dog, she was my only friend, but she got old, died, and now I'm alone again." And there's no way in hell that gets past a PR department, marketing team, or even a one-person focus group that doesn't particularly like kids.
In reality. But as oft repeated here, we are talking about a movie universe, specifically a science fiction horror universe where pretty much anything goes. I mean, this film is about a sentient doll that goes on a murder spree. How many times has that happened in reality, I wonder?
Forcing your religious beliefs onto a being that can't object.
I'm going to refrain from making the obvious religious dogma joke that I would have made here prior to all the people complaining in my comment section about me making jokes about their religion. Psych!
Forcing your religious beliefs onto a being that can't object.
You mean like children?
Calm down, I'm talking about the dog, not the child. Or am I?
Based.
You would rather she sat there feeding a toy virtual food until it shits itself?
Says the person who chose to create a similar creature that spends its first few years eating food and shitting itself.
You mean like children? Not based.
What was Gemma thinking?
This thing is my niece's birthday. I'm gonna get her a present.
She works for the company that makes them.
This is a really shitty way to talk about your sister in front of her niece. Was this purely for exposition, or to make me feel better about them dying tragically because they're terrible people? As if it matters.
You know, the more time I spend around people like these two yuppies in the front seat, the more I've come to the realization that people actually talk like this. You know the type. Humble braggers that in a conversation have to throw in all the people they know or are related to that have done things with their lives. So I said all that to say, this sin is for that fucking laugh.
Honestly, what is the purpose of a toy if you have to play with it on an iPad?
How can a parent in 2022, a time when the iPad and similar such devices have been around for over a decade, say this with a straight face?
How can you say this with a straight face? Seriously, what popular mainstream toy entirely requires an iPad to interface with it as of 2023? Fam, the iPad is the toy. That's what makes this movie unrealistic, that they suggest kids would use an iPad to play with a physical toy when the kid would just use the iPad itself to make racist comments in my comment section.
Katie, what are you doing?
Using this seatbelt unbuckling to goose the tension.
What even was the sin here? That a horror film creates tension for the audience? The context you cut out was that the snow caused the car to slide, which made Katie's toy fall to the floor. That's why she unbuckled her seatbelt, so that she could retrieve it. Why the hell is this a sin in this video? Shit like this is why these videos are bloated and overlong. Nobody needed that information.
This buffering circle was clever in the theater, but at home, it immediately caused me to pause the movie and scream in frustration, "How can this be buffering? It's on a goddamn Blu-ray disc!" By the time I realized what was happening, the TV had already been redecorated with a pizza, and I refused to take sole blame for my short temper.
This reminds me of an incredibly insane person that recently entered my comment section. Just like in the Glass Onion video, Jeremy is sinning a film for something that worked in the context it was supposed to be viewed in, which in this case is theaters and home streaming. But because he's watching it on Blu-ray, the trick doesn't work for him. In the Glass Onion video, Jeremy did something similar, wherein he sinned the movie because one of the misdirections in that film's mystery could be mitigated by simply rewinding the movie. Of course, that's a cheat that wouldn't be possible when watching the film in theaters, but somehow, because he has it on home video, a movie's mystery doesn't work because he can rewind it. This fucking lunatic thought that Jeremy was right in suggesting that because he can rewind a movie, the mystery doesn't work, which is a level of stupidity that almost beggars belief. You might as well tell me that Voldemort being on the back of Quirrell's head is a sin because you can fast-forward Sorcerer's Stone.
Remember, the key to fun is funky.
Not following this up with Brass Monkey Junkie, that funky monkey.
Sinning a movie for not making a bad joke.
Are you f***ing kidding me with this shit? A brightly lit ball and a tennis racket are not going to keep kids this age amused when TikTok, YouTube, and stickball are things that exist.
Which, of course, is why they're doing research. I mean, did you notice the guy standing there with the clipboard? There are plenty of children that will play with a toy for a specific amount of time. My guess is they're researching how long.
If we could at least show him what we have,
No,
he would...
You said so yourself. Not until she's ready.
And why would we talk to our boss when there is so much pronoun gaming to be had first?
But this is a stupid usage of the pronoun game, Sin, isn't it? Why would two people who both know who they're talking about say the name of their boss in this kind of conversation? The pronoun game, Sin, is for when one person doesn't know who the other is talking about. You can't even keep up with your own tropes.
Megan is hanging here like some creepy robot Jesus, and I'm struggling to make sense of the symbolism.
Probably because there isn't any. It's just a humanoid being suspended in a way that allows easy access to its components. Due to the American bias you hold, you associate this pose with Christianity's central figure, unaware that death by crucifixion predates Jesus, and the cross itself is a symbol that predates Christianity. Like all things in Christian myth, they borrowed the concept of the Egyptian Ankh and pretended it was something they came up with. So back to your Sin. Why don't you think this pose represents Abdallah ibn Abd al-Malik? He was crucified by Muslims in Egypt.
David, the only way to stay ahead of the competition is to come up with toys that are too advanced to replicate.
No, the key is to accept that there will always be rip-offs and variations on your theme, and the trick is to build brand loyalty and release products on a consistent schedule, or at least that's the hope of the tech company I was totally referring to.
Yeah, I agree with this sentiment. Her line doesn't make any sense here. The moment you release that advanced technology to the public, you are putting it in the hands of your competitors who will eventually be able to reverse engineer that product. The only way for her reasoning to make sense is for them to never release that product and to hope there isn't a leak. She's talking about a fucking toy meant for mass production. One sin removed.
Pet seems more complex than it needs to be, but that's only because I was using it as a launch pad for something bigger.
If that's the case, would it be so hard to remove a bunch of features, giving David his cheaper product while continuing to develop Skynet?
Yes? Do you think programming a quasi-sentient AI system is easy or not time-consuming? And for that matter, Megan is clearly a passion project for her, and typically those require most of someone's attention and energy. She also states that she doesn't want to dumb down her toy, given that she just explained her goal is to create tech so advanced as to not be replicable. Should I give back that sin I just removed since you didn't seem to understand what she's trying to say? Because I think I should.
In each pet, we installed a listening model that targets conversational patterns among kids.
You did not just tell me that.
I don't think any of us believe that this kind of is too far removed from reality. And thanks for dooming us all to a week's worth of ads about how our technology isn't spying on us.
Okay, but you're giving the movie a sin for something you just agreed with. If you believe this is like reality, with the context being that the majority of your sins hinge on things happening in movies being unlike reality, shouldn't you have removed a sin here?
Model 3 generative android. Megan, for short.
Actually, I think you came up with Megan first and then came up with what the letters mean. So it's not Megan for short. It's that first thing you said for long.
And here is where Jeremy can't seem to separate Doylist and Watsonian. He seems to be speaking to Gemma, which would be a Watsonian or in-universe criticism. However, since we have evidence that she's created other toys with names that do not follow this logic, it's clear that the filmmakers were the ones to come up with the name. So he should be directing his critique towards the filmmakers themselves, which would be a Doylist or out-of-universe criticism. This is why I give him 5 sins for speaking to the in-universe characters as if they can hear him. Those characters are simply following a script made by the writers and cannot deviate no matter what Jeremy yells at them.
Also, the troll in me wants to call her M3GAN for the rest of this movie, but saying it just once annoyed me so much that I can't commit. So here are 20 sins for using numbers in your branding as a substitute for imagination.
Besides the fact that technically it is due to imagination the name exists, this seems like a thinly veiled shot at the person who voices me, the current present Birdman, and edits these videos. What? Dude, I voice me. You sound crazy right now. Silence, peon. Anyway, alphanumeric naming conventions have existed for a long, long time. You sound like an old guy experiencing the internet for the first time back in the 90s. Well, you and everyone that pronounces the Birdman as 3 Birdman. Like, shouldn't it be the 3 Birdman? You fucking idiots.
I might have forgotten to put in the polypropylene barrier.
Okay, this looks pretty dramatic, but this really shouldn't be game over. Megan malfunctioned because of a dumbass, not because she has a fundamental flaw, other than the obvious avoid the robot-dominated end times thing.
Whoa, 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 whoa. You can't possibly be serious here. They just demonstrated that if a relatively small piece of equipment isn't installed, the doll can literally explode with the power to send concrete flying. At minimum, this means it can kill a child playing with it or blow up a plane. There is no way a competent CEO witnesses that and okays production. But then again, I can see why you, the CEO of CinemaSins, would okay putting out an obviously bad product.
Welcome home, Gemma. You have 6 unanswered voice messages and 5 Tinder notifications.
Elsie, turn off.
Hilarious, but why would anyone have their Tinder notifications broadcasted like this under any circumstances? I'm assuming she brings friends over at some point, so is she just bragging?
Those of us that don't just have space between our ears would understand that this means she usually doesn't bring anyone over. Everything they've shown so far suggests that Gemma is consumed by her work and that she doesn't have much time for or experience with social interactions. I mean, hell, she's an attractive woman with only 5 Tinder swipes in a sexual marketplace where men swipe right on everybody. If anything, that's the sin.
Oh, those aren't toys, Katie.
Movie will make a big thing about Katie not being able to play with these toys now, so Gemma can look like an ass when she has to open one later. But it's all under the guise of there being no toys in the house, which there absolutely are. They're just packed in boxes. Boxes you could go through right now to grab a few toys and books for Katie.
Holy gish gallop, Batman. What the hell was the sin here? That she doesn't allow Katie to play with what are supposed to be decorative commemorations and invaluable collector's items? That she has unfinished products that she doesn't allow her traumatized young niece to be a guinea pig for? That she later breaks her rule and allows Katie to play with her collection? What the fuck are you trying to say?
This coaster scene is to establish how out of touch Gem is with kids, when the real issue is how out of touch kids are with coasters.
So you're agreeing with Gemma here. Again, what's the sin? To waste our time with jokes nobody laughed at? Because I agree.
Yeah, they called and offered to help, but they live in Florida. They're kind of weird.
Redundant sentences.
That's Floridianist.
What about these ones up here?
Those aren't toys. They aren't Gemma's collectibles. You're not supposed to play with them.
Gemma is a terrible parent, no doubt, but it's wild how much Katie seems to want to go into foster care.
What? She's telling the truth. And here I thought lying was a sin. At least that's what God told me that one time I ate those weird-looking mushrooms my roommate put on my pizza back in college. And no, I wasn't hallucinating. I really saw God. God's the goat-looking one, right?
What's that?
Oh, that's Bruce.
It's Australian for Chekhov.
Demonstrating you have the ability to notice film tropes. Fantastic. My problem is that you don't recognize that Bruce's name isn't the same naming convention as Megan, demonstrating your earlier point about names was misplaced.
If I had a toy like Bruce, I don't think I'd ever need another toy again.
The same lie I told my parents about the Fushigi magic gravity ball is the catalyst that inspires Gemma to build her murder bot.
Okay, now you're just narrating the movie, though. Gemma is an inventor that relies on market research to develop toys for a company she works at. Like, dude, that's the fucking synopsis of the movie. The entire point is that she makes things that entertain children.
But seriously, is this the inspiration that Gemma needed? What light bulb did this switch on that wasn't already lit? What was Megan's purpose if it wasn't to be a kid's best friend?
Of course, one could only come to this conclusion if they were sleepwalking through the movie up to this point. So far, we are shown that Gemma can't connect to her grieving niece, but all of a sudden, Katie lights up and expresses genuine interest in something Gemma has been working on. That's the light bulb. Her idea could cheer up even the most dour and depressed child, and her niece is living proof.
Also, isn't this the worst idea for a toy company? If this actually becomes the last toy you ever need, I don't care how expensive it is, you will be screwed in the long term. Repeatedly buying shit that we don't need to replace shit we also didn't need but is now broken or older than the new shit we don't need is the backbone of our economy. Hey, capitalism!
Yes, but technology always improves. Back in the 90s, I'm sure people thought the Diablo was the pinnacle of Lamborghini supercars, but here in 2023, the Revuelto makes it look like a piece of shit. Hell, you could say the same thing about the iPhone. Compare the original iPhone with the 15 Pro Max. They're not even in the same solar system in terms of functionality. You're looking at the incremental improvements instead of how technology progresses over time. The Megan dolls could even become a service, where features are added to the existing platform through updates, which is the model of gaming consoles today, which themselves see revisions.
We will now expedite the creation of life by montaging its way through all the typing, rendering, and soldering required to make a scientific breakthrough.
Didn't the movie already do that? I mean, we were shown Megan was already functional and that the reason it exploded was because of a missing component. And we all know you don't want to see the things you are saying you want to see. Stop the cap.
David, I just want to be exceedingly clear that this was not my idea.
How do these people still have a job? Not only have they ignored David's arbitrary deadline, but they must have somehow spent even more of the company's money getting the Megan prototype to work. How are they allowed access to anything after squandering $100,000?
What you are describing is an inflection point. You are asking why they would be allowed access to anything, but there is a point where they'd be discovered as having squandered the company's resources. This is that point. You are working under the assumption that they have already been discovered, and this scene refutes that explicitly by showing you this is where the company is being made aware.
It's nice to meet you, Katie.
Ah, kill it now!
Literally yelling at the screen cliché.
There's nothing there. Oh, I'm sorry.
Spilling this glass of water was actually deliberate, but of course it's played as a up so that we'll all be more impressed by the inkjet printer in a skin suit.
Again, simply narrating what is on the screen.
Get me a list of things I can say in a presentation that makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about.
The writing prompt from the CinemaSins narrator to every CinemaSins writer somehow makes its way into the script. Wait a minute.
Yeah, cute reminder that there are multiple writers that write CinemaSins videos and that Jeremy isn't the only person writing the sins. Except when you look at their IMDb, Jeremy takes most of the credit. Funny how the ego works, isn't it? Reveals the truth every single time.
Sculpted from a titanium core.
You know, for kids.
Well, splah. Titanium is incredibly resilient, and we all know that the one thing you want your product meant for kids to be is durable.
And can be fully customized through 6 different silicone skin pigmentations.
Thinking that 6 different color pigments qualify as fully customizable. Which 6 colors, Funky? Which 6?
Well, they show you 3, which can be best described as Kardashian, vaguely black, and Jenna Ortega with blonde hair. Do you really need to see the olive, Native American, and Asian ones, the latter of which you definitely label racist?
Through our own unique approach to probabilistic inference, M3GAN is on a constant quest for self-improvement.
Through the writer's own unique approach to writing obvious hubris, the audience has no doubt that this will end poorly.
You say that as if this film wasn't marketed as a horror film. Seriously, who went to this thinking it was the prequel to Barbie?
Crazy. It's insane, right?
This reaction to any conversation about coasters.
Except the reaction wasn't about coasters. It was due to M3GAN's explanation about condensation.
Katie James, daughter of Nicole and Ryan James, killed in a collision on Interstate 84 outside of Oregon.
Interstate 84 outside of Oregon could be Idaho, Utah, Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. Most likely means Idaho, but I-84 exists on the East Coast too. The interstate roads are almost incomprehensible, and Eisenhower doesn't get nearly enough flack for that.
There are 2 sins here. One for misunderstanding that when someone says outside, they mean close to but not quite there. And 2 for giving a sin to M3GAN for something Eisenhower did.
Your goal is to protect Katie from harm, both physical and emotional.
Look, you don't need to be a parent to know that pain in all of its forms is an unavoidable part of growing up. How does no one, apart from Tess, realize that this shouldn't be M3GAN's function? Or do we just use this to set up the M3GAN takes this as permission to kill with extreme prejudice thing?
I think this film touches on an important part of the discussion behind AI, and that is, in their haste to create the most powerful AI they can, companies behind these technologies don't consider the risks. Sure, they say they do, but we are currently embroiled in a situation where AI is rapidly replacing cornerstones of many industries, such as music production and even acting. A lot of people think these are good things until AI gets advanced enough where it replaces their job flipping burgers, and then it becomes a problem. I see the rapid evolution of AI as an existential risk to humanity, whereas these tech companies see it as a way to increase profits, but they don't realize they are the architects of their own demise. What good will money be when AI makes the concept of money irrelevant? The next few years are going to be incredibly interesting, and by interesting, I mean we will see the technological singularity.
M3GAN.
Yes, Gemma. You are now my second primary user.
I'm going to sound like a dick here, but f it. You can't have 2 primary users. By definition, Gemma is now the secondary user. Let's at least make sure our new AI overlords know that words are important.
Yes, words are important. That's why it's important to debunk the shit you say, like the idea that there cannot be multiple primaries. I mean, hell, the fact that that word has a plural form should be your first clue, but if that's not good enough, what's another name for these 3 colors? Exactly.
Also, what was the point of showing a locked file if Kurt can still access it with just a double click?
I think the funniest thing about this entire video is that Jeremy is not the administrator on his own PC.
So there's this new game called Tic-Tac-Toe.
This new game called Tic-Tac-Toe.
While I agree with the sentiment of tic-tac-toe not being new, the sin here is for assuming the tic-tac-toe Katie is referring to is the one played on a piece of paper. I mean, you literally cut off her saying you use your hands for this game. And the one she's talking about is this.
2 different versions of the super fun clapping game called Tic-Tac-Toe. Let us know which version you like better. Tic-tac-toe. Give me a high, give me a low, give me a 3 in a row. Don't get shot by a UFO.
Did Gemma and crew not know that they built in the capability for Megan to move silently like a ninja assassin?
I think the CinemaSins writing team, that's mostly Jeremy, didn't realize the person in this scene was the therapist and wrote Gemma, but were too lazy to change it when editing this video and left it in thinking we wouldn't notice. I mean, otherwise, this scene makes zero sense given what we are seeing on the screen.
If you make a toy that's impossible to let go of, then how do you ever expect a child to grow?
You know, I thought the idea of an updated Chucky movie was pretty f***ing cool, especially with the Uncanny Valley preteen Annabelle aesthetic. But so much of this movie is dealing with the moral ambiguity of parents allowing technology to raise their kids. That's great, but it's not what the trailer told me. I'm used to trailers misleading me, but can you at least mislead me into something fun?
Well, that's a very subjective sin, wouldn't you say, CinemaSins? I mean, most people that watched this movie had a great time, and I think this movie's message that you just pointed out is a great one. Letting your kids be raised by technology is a bad thing.
And who's this? Your sister? Oh, Jesus Christ.
This is the only believable response to Megan in the whole movie.
Jeremy sends something he likes cliche? Because this looks like Jeremy sends something he likes cliche.
We do have a toy table where the kids leave their dolls and things like that. She's actually a working prototype, so I shouldn't even have her out in public.
And yet out in public, Megan shall sit as if she wasn't the single most valuable piece of technology to ever wear a bow, wig, and eyes too big for her head. This would be like Steve Jobs leaving the first iPhone at the Microsoft HQ break room and hoping the honor system will hold true.
I was with you up to the last bit. This is not like that at all. Unless, of course, you think kids on a picnic could reverse engineer what is clearly a titanium sex doll.
Did Gemma pre-program Megan to get up in the creepiest way possible, or did Megan watch The Ring on the way over here?
Well, they did say that Megan can handle whatever is thrown at her, with the implication being physical obstacles. Being that she is a robot, she doesn't need to get up like I do when my back is in tatters. And trust me, if she did, this movie would be at least 15 minutes longer.
I get that you can tell a lot from the facial expressions, but Megan is pinning down very specific emotional states to the percentage, or at least on a scale of 1 to 100. Are we saying that at any one point we can feel anything from 1% guilt to 100% guilt? How the f do you work that out? And why is this technology in a kid's toy?
While I can't speak to the specifics as to how, and being that this is a science fiction film, I don't have to. That's what fiction means. They specifically stated the doll is meant to learn and adjust to a child's mental state in order to best accommodate and help them. Like, that's the whole point behind Megan, to be the friend a child needs when they need it. The only thing I want to know is what happens when Andy gets too old for the cowboy and astronaut, if you know what I mean.
Nail guns don't work like this, and if this woman had one, why didn't she fix the hole in the fence?
See, you thought this movie was about only one bloodthirsty android, but this here is the Karen. Every homeowners association has one, so really, Megan is actually Terminator 2.
Then I found the kid's ear up this bank like 200 yards from where he was killed. Point is, we're also treating that as a potential homicide.
I know Gemma has a lot riding on this, but Megan has raised enough red flags at this point that Gemma should absolutely be worried that she killed this kid, and probably the neighbor, and certainly that dog. Call me a prude, but I feel that triple homicide trumps a telling off from your boss. But of course, Gemma won't act on it yet because we still have half an hour of this shit left to go.
But Jeremy, you are showing and talking over footage of Gemma literally looking at Megan and beginning to suspect her. There's a music stinger and everything. And the literal next scene is of this thought keeping Gemma up at night to the point where she goes to check on the doll.
Holy shit, his malice was at 79? I think Megan did the world a favor. Is this a quiet RoboCop reboot?
Yeah, cool joke, bro. What I have a problem with is this is the scene I was talking about where Gemma goes through Megan's files because she suspects her and Jeremy just ignores it like he didn't just ask for this.
Do you see this pen?
Gemma shuts Megan down because she suspects she has killed multiple people, and then she wraps her in bubble wrap instead of immediately dismantling her.
Again, this is Gemma doing something about the doll because she suspects her. Dude, why are you not acknowledging that your previous sin was wrong?
Oh, you f***ing dick. Could have unplugged this last cable from behind her like the rest, but you just had to put yourself in prime position for this f***ing jump scare, didn't you, you dick?
Textbook example of Jeremy yelling at the screen instead of, the screen writers.
Call!
I don't believe there is a company around that would make a toy this durable. And even if that was the goal, I don't think you had to give her the strength of a Terminator.
Well, that's nearly impossible, isn't it? I mean, if you're building a humanoid out of metal, by definition, it'll be super strong. I mean, that's just how structural metal works, especially if you want her to be able to lift anything heavier than a cup of orange Julius.
Cool visual, but Megan could have turned these off immediately or prevented them from going off in the first place. But no, she's got to be all cinematographic and cool and
Yeah, that's right. But what's the problem?
This dancing scene is terrifying and stylistic, but it occurs without any explanation beyond Megan enjoying her work.
Sinning this scene, that's worth these many sins.
Why in the name of f***ing does the blade from that paper cutter look like a machete? Is this a novelty paper cutter? That would be a f***ing weird find in a machete manufacturer's office, let alone a toy company.
I know, it's ridiculous, right? But not quite as ridiculous as that laugh.
Security! Help! But why does she want to kill David? That shitty kid and the shitty neighbor died because they fell into the loophole of threatening Katie's happiness. I know David is a dick, but what did he do to Katie?
Here's a bit of conjecture that's based on evidence. We saw that Megan has control over the systems of the building when they showed her able to wirelessly interface with the security system. This means it's not a stretch to suggest that she can see and control the elevators of the building as well. She then saw Kurt coming up the elevator through these same means, and since Kurt was her target, David was collateral damage. She explicitly explains Kurt's motive as she frames Kurt for David's murder.
So Megan can connect to anything electronic? Because earlier Tess and Cole unplugged her because they seemed to think it would stop her from being able to mess with the lights and shit. But she has no connection to this car at all. So how is she getting it to work?
This is the danger of AI, something they taught you in the Age of Ultron. Once she starts self-improving, there is nothing her creators can do to stop her evolution. That's the technological singularity, folks, and we are literally barreling into this same future in real life.
Also, if this is a feature she has, why aren't Cole and Tess aware of it? I get that Megan can learn and adapt, but can she grow new f***ing hardware that allows her to wirelessly control shit?
But do you really get that Megan can learn and adapt, though? Because it doesn't sound like you do. I mean, RF signals and key fobs can control vehicles today. Why would you think she'd be unable to replicate this signal? Do you think she's less advanced than the Birdman's car keys?
I'm just like Megan. No, seriously. I'm just like Megan.
If you should feel alone, or that your world has come apart, just reach out and you'll see a friend is never very far. Tell me your dreams, I will dream them too.